What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Lamont's Gym and Custom Knife Show, the number 3 podcast. Do you guys remember in one of my episodes, I was telling you about the mind control and how things over time, in my time, we have been so bad goods. The great Vince Ellison, in one of his podcasts, played a clip of I want to say, guy from Russia. And he's going to explain to you, and I hope you can hear it well. I'm going to try to turn the volume up. I hope you can hear it well. But this is how the mind control, or how the KGB explains mind control. And this goes way back, y'all, way back. But I just want you to hear it and understand it a little bit.
Statements about how the KGB and the Soviet Union has controlled black people. You can hear it, you can see it here.
Where reality is right in front of you, and somehow everyone is acting like it's not, has become the new normal. And I want to talk about that with you. Like, what is that? Does the truth actually matter to us anymore? That question led me to deep dive into someone we've mentioned before on other episodes, Yuri Bezmenov. Now, I know that there's a lot of people watching who have already seen his interviews several times, but I want to take a minute to deep dive into his perspective because I think he brings a lot of insight into that question. So Yuri was a communist defector from Russia who gave lectures in the United States about something most people had never heard of at the time. Something he called ideological subversion.
It's a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages.
These 4 stages include demoralization, the erosion of truth and meaning, destabilization.
Shop your new mattress your way at Ashley. Browse our wide selection online.
Realization, the fracturing of systems, crisis, the breaking point, and normalization, the acceptance of a new order.
The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not.
And when you hear that, you have to go all the way back to Martin Luther King Jr., because that's what they did. The whole civil rights movement was a psyops. It wasn't hard to get black people back on the plantation. But, like I said, Karen Whitsett is has paid the price for it. This lady down in Georgia, her name was Misha Maynor.
Now I'm going to stop it right there. But I want you guys to remember this. I've been saying this for at least the past 4 or 5 years. I didn't have a word for it, a term for it. I call it brainwashing. I listen to guys like Vince Everett Ellison. He called it brainwashing. He called it other names as well. But this Russian guy, and I'm not going to try to remember his name, he called it ideological subversion. And damn it, I'm going to remember that because that's what it is. It's brainwashing, y'all. And this guy, he said it takes, somewhat of 20 years to brainwash a society. And through the educational process, through the news networks. And once you do that, once that has taken place, you basically have captured that society. A man no longer believes that only a woman can have a baby. No, he can have a baby. Children believe that they were born in the wrong bodies. Men can be women. Women can be men. Police is bad. Y'all, all of this is ideologic subversion. Thank you, Mr. Ellison, for playing this piece and giving me this information, because I strive to learn something new every day. And this is something that has been in my mind for years. I just didn't give it a definition. I'm going to talk about this heavily, on my podcast from here on. But this is very, very, very important, y'all. I can't tell you when it started, but according to this guy and the studies and the practices of the KGB, it is a 10 to 15 to 20 plus year process. We are now in 2026, but you can go back to 2020. So did it start in the late 90s, in the late 1990s? Did it start in the early 2000s? I can honestly tell you that, in my opinion, things were pretty normal to a point in the late 90s. I can tell you from what I remember, because in the early 2000s, I'm freshly divorced. Even though I have 2 children, I'm running the street, doing this and doing that, everything I thought I was grown enough to do. So I was in the world. I wasn't paying attention to the world, but from what I could see, things were still normal. Now, if you ask Mr. Ellison and many others, and I tend to put my trust when it comes to information in these gentlemen, in these individuals, it started in 2004 all the way to 2014. Why 2004, you ask? We still had a Republican president and things was pretty much still conservative. Well, you had Bush going into his second term, but you had the candidates for the next term, speaking and talking and doing what they do. And one of those happened to be Barack Obama. And we know in 2008 to 2014, seeing the White House in rainbow colors, seeing rainbow flags flying, that's why a lot of people said that a lot of this demonization from the presidency to the college campuses, to other entities started. And like I said, I tend to believe them. When it comes to information, they got a lot more than me. They do a lot more deep diving. These are brainiacs, I'm just a dummy from Easterbogue, Alabama. But it has a name for me now, y'all. Ideologic subversion. how do we change this? Now, many people say that after Joe Biden's presidency, a lot of people start waking up. It's like, this ain't right and that ain't right. Boys shouldn't be invading little girls' sports. You know, up until that point, probably less than 2% of boys 7 to 18 wanted to be girls. They wanted to be boys, whether they were soft boys, hard boys, or whatever, they wanted to be boys. Same with girls. You look at now the last 4 years, that number has skyrocketed up. When it comes to boys wearing dresses, want to be little girls, I mean, that number is outrageous. Listen, in a podcast or two ago, I told you, being around hundreds and hundreds of people, I saw so many soft males. Whether they were homosexual or not, I don't know. Don't care. But I know they were soft. And what I mean by soft, if I shake another man's hand, I want a good firm handshake. I don't want, just a limp handshake. When boys are out roughhousing and, punching each other on the shoulder, running, hitting each other and doing this, doing rough stuff. I don't want to see a bunch of little boys on the phone, pushing their hair back, braiding their hair, wearing nail polish, talking feminine, walking feminine, acting feminine. Those numbers have skyrocketed. And it's a shame. You have to ask yourself, because, many of these are kids or early adults. Where is their parents' mindset? Well, I'm going to tell you something else that is popping up on the screen more and more and more. I'm seeing men from the age of 30. Let me blow my nose. Hold on a second. Thank you. I'm back. From the age of 30 to 60. Basically started having that ideology where openly they're wearing dresses. Openly they're wearing makeup and wigs. And all of these men that I'm seeing that's in the news that's high profile, like the man and his partner kidnapped, both him and his partner has children. Both of them kidnapped the children, wanting to take them to Canada or Mexico, and finally they got caught in Cuba trying to get their 7 to 10-year-old boys castrated. This is the mentality of the sickos, man. But I'm starting to see more and more and more of that. Hell, you can look at what's the basketball player? Magic Johnson's son. You can look at Dwayne Wade's son. And it's encouraged. It's encouraged, y'all. That is so sad. I don't care if they live with the moms or came up in both parent households. This is the fault of the parents. Why would you want your child to, whether as a child or a grown person, be castrated? Hell, you can't have no grandchildren. Maybe that's what they want. And listen, this is something I've been fighting in my brain for a long time, y'all. Because I'm against abortion. I'm against all abortion. I do think in some situations, medically, you might have to make one or two hard decisions medically, but just to have a normal pregnancy, a normal baby, no, I want to get rid of it. That ain't right. But hear me out, because they said the abortion rate is higher in the black community, black leftists, and white leftists. Conservative black women, which is there are very few, and conservative white women are having children, raising families. I'm not crying about that. And you ask, well, you're against abortion, but you're not, saying that it's bad for these leftists to be getting abortions. And I'm gonna tell you, it's bad. It's nothing good about an abortion. Nothing. You actually killing another human being. And in the woman's, stance, it's her own flesh and blood, and that's evil. But this is where I don't care. Why bring another leftist in the world? That could be the most conservative child or human being, the greatest president, the greatest wartime person ever. Could be. But sharing that DNA of this leftist, nah. Keep doing what you're doing. That might be cruel, may be mean, but I don't care. And I hate to compare human beings to animals, but when you are trying to get the fastest racehorse, you trace that bloodline. You want the biggest, fastest male and the prettiest, fastest female. You breed them. Same with dogs, same with cows, same with any other being, whether it be animal or human. I've seen with my own eyes as a child some of the greatest football players I've ever seen in my life at the high school level marry, a cheerleader. The cheerleader, she was in the gymnastics, played volleyball, played softball, all around athletic. I've seen that male who was in the gym working out, playing football, marry that cheerleader who was all everything in sports, breed, marry, have children, and 2 out of the 3 children went on that path, followed in their footsteps, all everything in athletics, made it all the way up to the highest point, the highest peak. And now they're known throughout the world, some of the greatest athletes. I think it may have been 2 more children, or maybe 1 more that had issues, and were just normal people. They're not known. They're brothers, but they're not known. There may have been a female. She didn't follow the athletic path, but those first 2 boys, known worldwide. So no, I don't feel bad about when a leftist, when a Democrat, when a liberal, Marxist, communist, socialist, if they want to keep on aborting, keep on aborting. Think about this. And listen, I'm going to finish up, and I got a few things to do, so I'm going to cut this short today. But y'all think about something. And I'm talking about in the present day time. And what's this, April or 2026. Look at some of your high-profile political entities on the Democratic ticket, on the Democratic Party. From Kamala Harris to the ugly, cross-eyed woman up there in New York, to Jasmine Crockett, to all these folks, to, I can't think of the damn senator. I don't know if it's Hakeem Jeffries or that other Obama wannabe. They call him Timu Obama. It's 2 of them up in that New Jersey, New York area. One's a House representative, the other's in the Senate, I think. Cory Booker, I think that's his name. And I'm not sure about Hakeem Jeffries, but I know Cory Booker. All these folks I just named, like I said, Kamala Harris to Jasmine Crockett, the ugly woman in New York, Karen Bass. I want you to look at all of these people, all across the country, in these high-profile political positions. They're childless and never been married. Who in their right mind, in their mid-20s to early 30s, don't want to have a child? And to submit your life to God and submit your life to another human being in the name of matrimony. Who in their right mind wouldn't want that? So I come to the conclusion these people are not in their right mind. Not now, not yesterday, not tomorrow. But y'all, I appreciate you. Remember that term, ideological subversion. We're going to have to deep dive on this. I'm finna actually, after I get through with a little bit of work, I'm going to put a little piece together, and I'm going to probably have a future podcast on this again. But I appreciate you. I love you. And as always, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, you guys stay blessed. And I'll see you next time.